I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the leadership journey of our guest and what unique traits bring them to be the leader they are today. Who knows what we're going to discover together, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and this week I am joined by the awesome Becky Field. Hi, Becky.
Hello, my lovely. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Now, Becky, if you've ever come across her, she helps you build a stronger, more cohesive team that works together towards achieving your goals. And this will help to transform your business. So, I couldn't have said it any better myself, Becky, even though I did say it, you know what I mean? Welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
I know we keep crossing paths, don't we? So it's just lovely. So, I mean, we've been meaning to do this for a while, haven't we? So it's great to see you and be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the lovely way to put it, actually. We've kept crossing paths and never actually got to spend any quality time together. So I've been really excited for this because I know you do some amazing work. I've been an avid follower on socials for a while and love to see all the warrior stuff you've been doing. And I can't wait to hear all about your stories today. And of course, that's what we're going to dig into in this episode, which is all about your sort of leadership journey to date. And then a reminder for all the listeners that we'll talk about your take on game and leadership in your second episode. And then when you come back for the third, that's if you can stand it for a third time. We'll go into your pivotal moments. So thank you so much for giving us your time, Becky, and take it away. Let's hear about your story.
Oh, bless you. No, honestly, when you said, I know we talked about coming on this podcast for a while, and then I thought, well, leadership, it's a funny word, that, isn't it? Because I don't necessarily class myself as a leader, and yet a lot of people would disagree with that because we all lead ourselves, don't we, at the end of the day? So my journey into what you would call leadership, as in the business leadership now, has been almost like, I came from education. I was a really successful tutor in further education. And during that time, that was I started there in 2000. Is this what you want to know, by the way? Because I'll give you my whole life story.
Oh, look, this isn't about what I want. It's about what you would love to share with us. Bear in mind, there's hundreds of listeners around the globe that we're looking to help give hints and tips on what we've done in our lives that may be helpful to them in their leadership journey along the way. So whatever you'd love to share with us, and I might dig into a couple of bits and ask you a few extra questions on the way, Becky.
Perfect. Well, I love talking about further education because it was my passion. If I always say that I work with people who have come into their second career, and yet when I left further education, I didn't know what else to do, to be honest. It was kind of like, how do you do something you've always wanted to do, and yet I couldn't continue in it, so when we talk about a leadership journey, the journey was, I absolutely loved further education. I loved being a lecturer. I worked with, I would say, probably the most difficult group of people, but lovingly difficult in my eyes, because those were the ones where I had the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunity to make a difference. And I absolutely loved it. And I was there until 2014. And I always say that one of my most proudest moments of my career has been that a lot of my students from the very first couple of years in teaching are now on LinkedIn with me, owning their own businesses, and I just think that's brilliant because, they were people, I suppose, who gave up not only hope in themselves, but hope in the whole of the system. and to be, to play a part in that. And I think, I tell that story because that's very current into what I do now. Is a lot of the people I work with, not primarily, but a lot of the people I work with have left a kind of organization of whatever type, whether that be teaching, whether that be in corporate, to actually set up on them by themselves, and then they are naturally put in a position of leadership. And that's where I think, right, okay, these are challenges that we can absolutely, that's why I call it a warrior, because you feel as if you're fighting, you feel as if you're fighting, first of all, for yourself. So from 2014, it was kind of like a lost, I suppose, how you see these pictures of a boat floating, almost like lost, because my whole of me was wrapped up in teaching. What would I do if I wasn't doing that? Who was I if I wasn't doing that? And then, I loved groups and I loved bringing people together. And obviously, as most coaches will say, we love helping people, to find a coach who doesn't.
Yes, it would be a shame to be in this profession if you didn't like helping people.
I know.
It's kind of the sort of niche that we're all sharing, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And a wonderful man from the AA fellowship. I'm in recovery from alcohol, so I celebrate in September. I celebrate 18 years, so that's part of my journey as well. I know.
Wow, that is incredible and worth a whoop whoop and a big cheer.
I absolutely love it, and I always drop that
awesome.
I dropped that in because I'm dead proud of myself, but also, I couldn't have done it without keeping a maintenance of sobriety in there as well. And a gentleman just said that he'd gone somewhere and he just felt so different. And I thought, I need a bit of this. And I went to a group coaching session and met my wonderful coach, Hannah, and that's how I started in 2014 on this, what they call the journey of refinding myself and becoming the person I am today. So it was through group coaching, and it was just fabulous to be able to. And I remember it, and I do say it honestly. When I was sat there, I felt like a shadow of my former self, and you wouldn't believe it was the same person who sat here with you now. Because it was how I was so desperate and so lost. That's the only way I can describe it, because it was so tied up in this profession that I needed to find a new identity.
Yeah.
But I recognise now, being, nearly 10 years down the way, that actually all of that was always for a reason, and what brought me and my teaching experience, all of that being brought into now is just incredible.
Yeah. Oh, Becky, look, thank you for sharing actually what is a significant pivotal moment in your life. And I'm sure there are others that you can share with us in the third episode, but it would be remiss not to acknowledge what you've just shared with us. I mean, how fantastic to have realized in yourself that the direction and that point in your life that you were at and the direction you were going in wasn't right for you. Recognizing and understanding that you wanted something different, because so many people don't always see those signs. They're on that sort of road to destruction, if you like. I don't know any other way to describe it just now. And it being able to bring yourself through that, but also asking for help. That's really brave and courageous.
And I always say I've asked for help twice. So the first time was in 2005 when I got sober. And the second time was when I went to my then, so this is my epitome of a perfect leader, is my then manager, and I said, I'm not well. And this was in further education. And this woman, and we're good friends now, thank goodness, she just said to me, and she said it as sweet as this, she just said, go to the doctors, sweetie. And it was, that to me, I was, like I say, I was really successful. I managed a number of classes in the college, and for her to put my well-being first above, obviously above, she knew that it could be covered. But to me, that is a pure example of what I call proper leadership in my book.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it is that beautiful part of leadership, which is one of my favourite parts, actually, Becky, where it is all about the people, the example that you set, looking after your team, those softer skills that aren't always so valued, if you like. Now, obviously, that's becoming more known about now in terms of the softer skills, and people are beginning to recognise just how important they are in terms of keeping people engaged, looking after mental health and well-being within the team. That's just as important in my mind. And okay, I'm not having a load of KPIs and sales targets, dangled over my head.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do that sort of job, so I haven't got that dangling over my head, because the other things are very, very important to me, and the welfare of my team, the engagement, and their happiness is actually what makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I suppose thinking like that, I was sent on, it just reminded me, I was sent on a 15-week management course, level 3 management course, while I was at the college, and I was the NEETs coordinator for 4 years while I was there. And they said, oh, do you want to go on this course? And of course, who wouldn't say no? I'm an avid learner, as most coaches are. So I went on this leadership course, and I cannot remember for the life of me what the matrix was, but I know that was one side was value in profit and people, and I literally leaned straight towards the people. And at the end of it, I just thought, I'm not the kind of manager that they think should fit this role, but I got the results for the kids, which was what my my passion was. And like you say, your passion is with the people, always with the people, and that to me is a beautiful leader.
Yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying, and the fact that you've had that recognition from somebody, just going back to what you were sharing initially about that lovely example of leadership where your manager recognized you needed help and support from elsewhere, and that work shouldn't have been your focus at that time.
Absolutely.
What a lovely example of just great leadership, those attributes that we think about in leaders that we want to see, that empathy, that human side, that bringing that focus to what's important. Okay, yes, the learners are important in that school setting and that educational setting you were talking about. Of course they are, but the sentence you shared there, which was she knew she had it covered. So it was within her gift to say to you, go see the doctors, look after yourself, and what have you at that time. And you know what, even if you're not sure if it's covered, and I've been in this situation before, it's still the right thing to do, to look after that individual and not selfishly hang on and say, well, I can't let them go off, on leave or sick or whatever it might be until this is taken care of. It will get taken care of.
It always will. And I think it was two things you said there, Paula, was, it was a gift that she gave me, but also I absolutely believe that she did the best for the students by taking me out of the equation. Because at the end, if you think of the bigger picture, you think of the ripple effect of poor mental health, which is what it was, poor, literal burnout. That was to take me out of that equation. She did the best for the company as well, not just for me. So and I always say, and she would She would never agree with this as a friend, but she would. I say she saved my life. That was one of the life-saving opportunities, and the first one being the sobriety, obviously.
Yeah, well, we whatever you want to talk about on your third episode in terms of your pivotal moments, you may want to dig into that first one a little bit more,
Yeah.
because I know there will be people that have experienced that or are going through it now that listen to the podcast, and whatever we can do to help them lead themselves out of it is going to be super, super helpful. So, you know, I really appreciate your honesty and sharing what you've already shared in our first 15 minutes together, Becky. My goodness me, there's so much in there already to help people. Really exciting. But, thinking about those attributes of great leadership, you've talked about sort of that main part of your career, or the two parts really. The first part in terms of that educational piece, and then the second part in terms of the coaching piece now. Where were your sort of early signs of leadership? And I remember you saying at the very beginning, I never saw myself as a leader. But when you think back now, what were your influences? What was that early part like for you?
That's an interesting story, isn't it? Because if I was to think of the kind of leadership that I class as leadership, I would probably say it is people who have led by example. So I would say people when I was growing up in childhood, it would be maybe church groups that I was part of that were really instrumental when I was much younger. And then I'm just trying to think now.
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it?
It's
When you
hard,
think
isn't
about it
it?
the first time, you're like, gosh, who was it? But I often think about my mum and dad as a starting point. There were some great examples of leadership that years ago I would never even have recognised.
Yeah.
But obviously now that we're in that leadership space and we're helping others to lead themselves and get the things that are important to them and go for them, have that courage and bravery that you've shared with us so willingly and openly today. I now am able to look back and recognize those things in mum and dad. Some will say that my mum and dad splitting up, so sorry to hear that. Imagine them together now, not a chance. And they'll probably kick me under the table when if they listen to this back. But the fact that I've now got a wider family, and my dad's wife, my stepmom's been hugely instrumental as well as mum and dad in my kind of upbringing, because they've been around for such a long time. So I remember going into the office with my stepmom. She was the leader of a sales team in Lion's Made. Do you remember Lion's Made ice cream?
I do.
Yeah, so in Lion's Made, and just sitting there in awe at the way she used to just deal with her team and everything that was going on at that time. And I must have been, I don't know, 12, 13 at the time. I don't even remember really, and perhaps even a bit younger because it was over a number of years. And just thinking, God, incredible. When I grow up, I want to be good at stuff like that, you know. And then, I was just going to say, going into my mum's office and seeing the way she was, and dealing with everything she had to deal with. And she worked in an architect's office at the time, which was just incredible because they were all a bunch of divas, How she handled them was just amazing. And that doesn't mean all architects are divas by any means, but this bunch, quite a few of them stood out as particular divas and difficult characters to manage.
Yeah, yeah, isn't it funny? I mean, it sounds awful, doesn't it? But if I think family dynamics is a completely different podcast for me.
Yeah,
But but to have, like you say, instrumental leaders or influential leaders,
mm,
I suppose, as I would, if you highlight people with kindness, who
yeah,
lead by example, who say what they're going to do, and say what they're going to do and actually do it.
yeah.
And I suppose when we talk about people who have been that shining light to me, I would probably say is my cousin. My cousin Liz is instrumental in. She's just one of the kindest people I know. But a lot of
Mm,
the people I know, or my family, have been quite um, independent. So there was never any leadership in that sense, but there was
mm,
leadership in the sense of leading themselves. So it
yeah.
wasn't, whereas if I think about kindness and leadership and leading in her world with my cousin Liz, um, she's led a business whilst bringing up two children, whilst renovating a house, whilst looking after her own parents. And that to me is a real leader. That to me is just inspirational, because it's for me, I've chosen not to be a parent, but I think any any person who chooses to have children is an absolute born leader, because you're leading the next generation. And I mean that absolutely 100% on my heart. And it's
Mm,
just phenomenal. But then to add on top of that, because let's face it, that's a full-time job, isn't it?
mm,
But to add on top of that, to run a business, to be successful, to find your place back in the workplace, back into self-employment after doing already a momentous task, to me, they're the real leaders.
mm,
They're the real leaders. Whether
yeah.
they be mums or dads or parents or guardians or whoever it is, they are the real leaders, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And it does take a team to
Yeah,
bring up children. Let's face it, because we do
team
need
and a
lots of
dog.
them. Yeah, we
And a dog.
do. Yeah, we do need help. And I always say, I couldn't have done it without my husband
Mhm.
taking a more part-time role and being there more for our daughter over the years, just the way it sort of panned out. We didn't plan it
Yeah.
like that, but it just so happened. And it's given me lots of opportunity to do different things in my career, that I wouldn't otherwise have been able to do. But also, he's always stayed working as well,
Mm.
so that he's kept going and kept his contacts and kept leading and what have you in what he does as well. So it's that's just two people involved in her
Yeah.
upbringing. But I know that we've had lots and lots of support from the grandparents, and back in the day, the nursery and the childminder, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
It does actually takes an army. Let's
Yeah,
be
let's
honest
face
here.
it. Yeah. And why do you think I call everything warrior? Because the people we work with are absolute warriors.
Yeah, incredible. And I love that. I love that name. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, God, that makes so much sense. How did you come up with that idea?
Do you know, I just, because of Westfield, obviously, and I like a little bit of a WW type of thing. And it was kind of like, what am I doing here? And we are we sometimes it feels like a fight, but also I feel as a coach, I fight for people, I fight for what they want, and I fight for them to be happy. It's all about happiness and well-being, which sounds a bit wet, which I'm not a wet coach, as you know. But
Yeah,
what I mean is, if you want something, sometimes you do have to fight for it. You cannot just give up.
yeah.
And I also, and that's what it is. But fighter doesn't sound as good as warrior, does it?
Oh,
And
I
also
love
because we've got the Orange Army, so
it. Yeah, Yeah, warrior sounds perfect. And you're absolutely right. Just something you said there, you do have to fight for things sometimes. And I might not use the word fight, but, with my clients, I just say to them, if you're not willing to put the work in, commit and take action, you're not going to get this thing over here that you've said you want. So what is it going to be? You're either going to take the steps, commit and take action, or you're just going to hope it falls in your lap, because you'll be waiting for another 20 years and it still won't have fallen in your lap. So
absolutely.
It's a bit of a cold reality check sometimes, and people find it hard to hear, but it's what they need to hear to help moving forwards. And for years before I was a coach, Becky, I used to say to people, they'd ask me for advice, so I'd give them some advice, and then I'd just say, but it's all very well me giving you advice, but until you're ready to do something with that, I might as well not bother sharing it with you. So come to me when you're ready, and then we can have a conversation. So even before I was a coach, I was a coach.
I know, isn't it true? But you know what? People need that, don't they? And that's why I say about warriors. And I think, sometimes we need those people to lift us up. If you imagine you go into war, like the old battle scenes, I'm not talking about, on the films of, you literally, if someone falls down, it's the army that come and get you, the people surrounding you. And for me, that that group coaching element is about being together, and nobody gets left on the field, Paula.
No person left behind.
Exactly.
I love that idea. That's fantastic. Oh my goodness. There's so much in there that we've already touched on today, Becky. Amazing to chat to you around your sort of journey and what's brought you to where you are now in Westfield Coaching. Thank you so much for sharing today. I know that the listeners are going to get lots of tips and lots of insights into you as a person and more about the leadership piece. So thank you for this episode today. Next week, we are digging into your take on game and leadership. So really excited as to what you might come up with there. But for now, thank you so much for today, and look forward to catching up next week.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been lovely to speak to you. I'll see you soon.
Wonderful. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Today, we listened to the leadership journey of our guest and how they got to be where they are today. Now, in the chats, we talked about all sorts of different things, and there are lots of bits and pieces in there that are going to mean something different to each and every one of you. You will all have your own unique takeaways, so I encourage you to do a bit of reflection now and see what this might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and I look forward to seeing you on Game of Leadership, podcast for curious leaders, next week. Bye for now.